This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio. Business owners are going to be the number one casualty of AI. We all thought employees would lose jobs because of the AI movement, but it's actually the business owners who are ultimately going to suffer if they're not careful. Social media, as we know it, has completely changed. We're entering a completely new era. And social media fundamentally has always been a platform for people to connect. If people start showing up on social media, and it's already starting to happen, and feel as though they're not having the human connection experience, one of two things are going to happen. They're going to move off the platform, find somewhere else where they can truly connect with real people, or the platforms are going to completely innovate and integrate more humanness in order for their consumers to be happy on their platform. At the moment, you'd be scrolling your own feed and being able to see that ChatGPT or Claude has written a caption because of those red flag M dashes, or the way people speak seems a little off, or maybe it's the formatting approach. And we're already getting these little red flags, which as consumers, I'm sure you can relate to this, makes you feel a little bit icky. It's not necessarily because you're a business owner too, and you're likely using AI tools in your own business. So it's not as though you're judging that creator or entrepreneur for using the tool itself. It's more giving this icky feeling in your stomach because you don't want to be consuming watered down versions or robotified versions of what they have to say. You follow these people because you have an interest in what they have to say, their worldview, their business experience, whatever it is that you're following them for. And then you sort of feel, oh, okay, are they even writing this, or are they taking all of the shortcuts and completely diluting what it is they have to say? The thing that people don't realize is that this super formula hungry approach that a lot of business owners have is coming from this narrative that us business owners need to be creating more content in order to stay relevant online. And there's truth to this. Of course, the algorithm truly does reward consistency, and it does get your content seen by more people if you follow the rules of their game. So this is true. However, when we are trying to, and I've said this in a lot of other videos, and if you want to go deeper into this particular part of the topic, go and stalk my other videos and you'll find plenty there where I talk about the real reason why, tech giants build their platforms. It isn't actually for business owners to have a wealthy life or a successful business. So go and stalk those other episodes if you want to go deeper on that. But the premise of this topic is to actually pick up on behaviors that may be actually getting in the way of you having ultimate success on your platforms, but also in your business. Because we have this narrative that we need to be creating more content, this means that we are constantly feeling behind by way of our content. I actually did a poll on my Instagram yesterday, and I was polling people about their experiences with their content creation, how much time they spend, what their general feeling towards it is, and all of these other questions. But the one that stood out to me the most was I asked people how they feel about their content strategy right now. And almost every single person who participated in the poll put their hand up and said, I feel overwhelmed and behind when it comes to content creation. And I really feel like this gives an idea about what business owners are feeling behind the scenes. They're feeling overwhelmed, not because they're not doing anything, but because they constantly feel behind in their content creation. And the reason why this matters about what I'm talking about today is because this feeling is the root cause of the behaviors I'm about to go through. I had an experience last week where I felt a similar feeling. Like I was like, I haven't recorded an episode in a little while. I need to get into the studio and record one. And just because of the general busyness of my life and the looking at my calendar, seeing what I had coming up and realizing, I don't have a whole lot of time to record this episode, I defaulted into a shortcut. I was watching a really successful business owner and YouTuber on YouTube, and he mentioned that he had this content system that works really well for him. Now, I have my own content system that feels quite good for me. I've kind of created it based on exactly, my preferences and everything, the way I like to work. Yet, because I was in this overwhelmed and behind state, I saw him offer his and I was like, this one will be better. I downloaded it instead of just doing my own ritual, my own way of, extracting what it is I want to say and organizing it in a way where I want to present it to my audience. I defaulted to actually outsourcing my creative process to this trusted creator. I went through the whole process where I looked at his formula. I thought, that's a great idea. I'm going to try and infuse that into the way I do things. And I followed the whole process and got to the end and had a complete plan of what I wanted to talk about with all of my dot points of what I wanted to cover. And I sat down and I started to record. And then when I looked at my notes, I was like, this feels completely unlike me. It did not feel like the way I would present ideas. It did not feel like, the way I would deliver the information at all. And I thought, this is just another way of the algorithm dictating how it is business owners show up. Because this particular creator has had such success on his platforms, he has created a system that is based off how his algorithm has rewarded his content creation in the past. So he's passing this down to his audience, which is then falling in my lap, which could then potentially be passed down to how I talk about it to my audience, and then so on and so forth. And I realized, wow, this is the information that our AI learning, models are actually using in order to give advice on, to business owners, whether it's how they write, how they structure their episodes. It's the exact same thing. Like, formulas are now becoming this really easy resource for creators, business owners, entrepreneurs, and AI tools to use and give to their consumers in order to solve the surface level problem of that person. Like, the business owner who's trying to create content, the surface level problem is, I need to create this week. Yes, it's going to solve that surface level problem, but what it's actually going to do in the long run is make you sound like everyone else online, because the way you present something could be said in minorly different words. But why do you think it is that every YouTube vlog starts off the same way? Like, come with me on a day where I'm going to do XYZ. Like, even the tone of voice of how it's said sounds like every other creator. There's no real resonance in that, or no real resonance potential between you and your audience when you default to scripting tools, whether it's AI or formulas from your trusted creators, or maybe it's even your business coach. Do I think that you should completely ignore the advice of people who have created platforms or businesses like you want to? Absolutely not. But what I do think is, in that topic development phase is what I call it. In the phase where you're like, what is it that I want to create? I really think you need to stay completely away from formulas or AI tools in that phase. What I do that works really well is I voice message or type, whatever you feel more comfortable with. I'm a podcaster, so my voice is way more comfortable for me to use. But if you're a writer, absolutely write down instead. But just word vomit everything you believe on the topic that you want to talk about. Then if you're going to, want to, systemize your approach, I would then allow myself to put that into AI and just say, hey, what are the key themes that I've talked about in this brain dump, whether it's voice message or text, and it will put that back on you. Then sit with that. Then ask yourself, is that what I want to talk about today? Is that really, what takeaway message could, exist within that theme? Is that going to help my audience? Is that going to solve a problem for them? Yes or no? Is it going to resonate with them? It's just a simple question. And if you're not lit up at those themes, then maybe it's not time for you to actually sit down and record. Maybe it's time for you to walk away from the content creation hamster wheel, that I like to call it, or even allow yourself to do the tasks that are kind of mindless and less creative. Then walk away from all your devices and actually sit in stillness and do not consume another piece of content. Why? Because all of the content you will consume is algorithm coded, mostly in this day and age. It teaches you subliminally to perform. As a business owner, you're always thinking of how can I, kind of level up my business? Can I incorporate, whether you know it or not, can I incorporate this style? Should I talk like this? Should I present ideas like this? You're always going to be in that like growth mindset as an entrepreneur or as a creator. So consuming content is pretty much the worst thing you can do in that phase where you know you need to be creating. So what I suggest you do is actually walk away and chase stillness, nature, ocean swim, walk, and even if you're not super close to nature in your life, call someone and just have a conversation. Like, you know, I just think that is such a way more productive time than diving deep into someone else's framework, someone else's formula, someone else's system per se in that ideation stage. Once you have, you know, the themes or the ideas that you really want to talk about and you feel like this is something you want to base your content on, then I suggest recording it without a script. And I know so many people will disagree with me, but if you allow yourself to record without a script, you allow yourself to speak in the way that you naturally speak. And then if your goal is to grow your social media platform or to increase the reach and visibility on your social media platform, then what you can do is actually in the edit process, and we do this for our clients, they record their full long form content and then we take from their actual words the hook and the sequence that's going to engage their audience as much as possible on those short form platforms, and they get that. They get to tick that box as well, but it's not as though they are diluting their message and changing what it is they actually would say based on the algorithm. Do you see that? It's so subtle, that nuance of change and strategy, but it really is everything. Because instead of subconsciously changing what it is you want to say or quickening what it is you want to say, or, you know, having that perfectionism control of what it is that you're going to say and therefore like relying on AI tools or someone else's formula of what it is you want to say that one more time, you're actually, you know, speaking as you naturally would and allowing your message to fully connect with the people that it's meant to. And I've said this in so many of my videos before, but really what I've seen, what I've got the data for in every single client that I've worked with is that we could achieve virality on that short form piece of content, and it doesn't actually directly impact the bottom line of the business. Yet this can sometimes in isolation be what business owners are chasing, which makes sense. I'm not saying that you shouldn't chase or shouldn't aspire for visibility on your brand at all. But the problem is if you do that in isolation, you will unfortunately start to look and sound like everyone else online, which ultimately, as I said at the top of this episode, is going to contribute in the same way that AI is going to, you know, strip the humanness of content. Doing that is the exact same thing. It's the same shortcut. It's the same, you know, dopamine hit of ticking off the task that you've created a post simply and easily with no friction. When the friction in that ideation and that topic development and that actual recording or, you know, expressing what it is you want to say, that friction, that imperfect process of delivering and articulating in what you want to say, in the way that you want to say it, is the very thing that is going to allow you to stand out and really, you know, connect with your audience and in turn make you the person they're going to invest in the long term. Because if you sound, look, and behave like everyone else online, how do you think that your ideal audience is going to, you know, choose you as their investment? It's really something to consider. Now, I wrote something in my book, The Content Exit, that kind of speaks into this exact thing, and I thought I'd read it aloud. This is under the title, The Formula Following Trap When Humans Become Robots. Here's how you know you've fallen into the trap. You look at the formula first, then create your content from there, instead of saying exactly what you want to say and using frameworks as a guide. This can look like searching for viral hook templates or engagement boosting captions to start off. Essentially, you're plugging your message into someone else's structure, creating a watered down version of what you'd say in real life. The result? Content that sounds like everyone else, generic, vanilla, completely forgettable. But here's the worst part. You keep doing it because you see other coaches or business owners doing it. You think if everyone else is following these formulas. They must work. What you don't see is that everyone else is struggling too. They're just better at hiding it. This trap exists because conventional content marketing keeps you constantly plugged into what everyone else is doing. You're scrolling, copying, and conforming instead of creating from your own wisdom and experience. Rick Rubin says, when creating art, you should put the audience last. It's a paradox, really. The only way you can get the thing you're after is by ignoring that that's the reason you're doing it. Yet it's true. It's why the best songs, pieces of art, and even menu items often defy cultural or industry rules and still get ranked number one in their respective fields. Like you, artists, chefs, and musicians desire praise for their work, but the ones who actually get the buy-in from their audience get it as a byproduct of their authentic expression. I think this formula following trap exists because of humanity's powerful drive for conformity. We're wired to follow social norms to gain acceptance and avoid rejection. In the coaching industry, marketing gurus have created artificial norms around posting schedules, caption structures, and content formats. But following these formulas strips away your autonomy, which also is a fundamental human need. When you're forced to follow human, rigid, external templates, you lose control over your own creative expression. What should be energizing becomes a chore, and what should showcase your expertise makes you invisible in a saturated market. You become a robot executing someone else's programming instead of a human sharing wisdom. The book goes on to talk about how the wisdom leverage system solves that trap. But I think what I want you guys to take away is you've started to notice the M dashes in captions, and I want you to start to notice in your own behavior how you're also doing that by following other people's formulas in their content. And how can you set yourself up for success within this new age, on this new way of social media? You need to be aware of what your audience desires when they want to, learn from you, buy from you, and that is connection. So how can you show up in a way that really is exactly how you show up in your service, in your coaching practice, in your service delivery, whatever it is that you do? Do you actually do that in your content? And how, if not, how can you start to show up in that way? The easiest way for me, and this is why so many of my clients transition into creating long form content, is to be able to set yourself up in a set like this and just speak in a way you would, and then allow your editing team to get rid of all the bullshit that you don't want included in the episode. So you're not having to worry about going on tangents or going off track. You can trust the process while you're sitting here, but without scripting it to the point that it's not even you anymore. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.